Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Russell Berrie Foundation, making a difference. PSE&G, committed to providing safe, reliable energy now and in the future. Hackensack Meridian Health, keep getting better. The New Jersey Education Association. Gibbons PC. New Jersey Institute of Technology. NJIT makes a difference in our students' futures. NJM Insurance Group, serving New Jersey's drivers, homeowners, and business owners for more than 100 years. The Fidelco Group, and by Wells Fargo. Promotional support provided by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. And by ROINJ, informing and connecting businesses in New Jersey.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The jobs of tomorrow are not the jobs of yesterday.
Look at this. You got this?
Here it is, man. Look at that.
Life without dance is boring.
I don't care how good you are or how good you think you are, there is always something to learn.
Do you enjoy talking politics?
No.
People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
Our culture, I don't think, has ever been tested the way it's being tested right now.
Such a good question. High five.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato, coming to you remotely, obviously. This first segment we're going to do is part of a series simply called 25 for 25. What does that mean? Well, in cooperation with our friends and partners at the Russell Berrie Foundation, celebrating their 25th anniversary, they have been recognizing people for 25 years who are making a difference. I've been honored to host virtually every one of those events every year where these very special heroes are recognized. And one of those heroes we kick off with is, in fact, Chip Paillex, who's president and founder of America's Grow a Row, who was the 2010 winner of the Russell Berrie Award for Making a Difference, right, Chip?
That's correct. And great to be here, Steve. Thanks for having me.
I remember that day. I remember that forum. It was great. By the way, tell everyone what America's Grow a Row is and why it matters more now than ever before.
Well, very simply, our program is based on volunteers that and a paid staff that where our volunteers come out to plant, harvest, and then donate produce to food banks and food pantries, hunger relief agencies all throughout the state of New Jersey and up and down the Mid-Atlantic region at this point. And we also have an educational component, which is critical to teach people about healthy eating. And
there are 4 farms, right?
Yes, yeah, we just secured our 4th farm about a month ago. And so, yeah, we're in a growing mode, not just in the field, but also acquiring additional property.
Where are the 4 farms?
Here in Hunterdon County, so Alexandria Township, Franklin Township, Union Township, and also Clinton. So yeah, all tucked together.
Chip, the impact of COVID-19, there is not one industry, not one not-for-profit. We're a not-for-profit, the Caucus Educational Corporation, our partners in public broadcasting, a not-for-profit. You're a not-for-profit. What has been the biggest impact of COVID-19 on the work that you and your colleagues are doing at America's Grow a Row?
Well, I think what we've all experienced, and your organization as well, I'm sure, is the financial hit. But we were able to recover from that. Of course, we want to be able to continue to stay in our operations and be impactful in the communities in which we serve. But for us, when you have 9,000 volunteers that traditionally go out and help to plant and harvest, immediately, given the social distancing guidelines and restrictions and such, we had to completely flip our model from being a volunteer-based to a commercially based organization this year. Knowing that, one, there's a great need because of the financial crisis and the pandemic itself. But at the end of the day, look, our work has never been more important. Not just getting food, but healthy food out to those folks who need it the most. So we basically flipped the model around greatly this year, and we're on a good trajectory to make some big numbers.
As leaders of not-for-profits, who have to raise money, who have to run an organization and try to plan for the future with so many incredibly powerful and sometimes scary variables and uncertainties around such things as COVID-19. I'm curious, back in 2010 when you won the Russell Berrie Award for Making a Difference, how would you describe the impact that award had and the dollars that went with it, that go with it, By the way, we'll put up the Russell Berrie Foundation website as we do this program so people can continue to nominate others for that award for making a difference. What was the impact of that award?
You know, like this is such a pivotal year. That was such a pivotal year as well, because this really kind of broke us out of the, you know, the little stream and into the mainstream by being recognized for the work that we're doing and the number of people that were impacted, not just from a feeding standpoint, but the volunteers and those who are exposed to giving back. So the award itself, the monetary reward, of course, is huge in its own right. But it was the connections. It was all the PR that
Look at us. You've been on with us 10 times in the last 10 years. This is a partnership. This is a relationship that came out of that.
Absolutely. And we never get tired of it because you know what? Just like you and any other form of media, you know, you're all with us side by side, boots on the ground, getting the word out about what we do and the need that's out there. So, yeah, it's an awesome partnership. And I would consider it to be more of a team than anything.
Along the lines of making a difference, that's what this series is called. That's what the Russell Berrie Foundation is all about, recognizing people who are making a difference. What would you say to someone right now who was watching and said, well, that's great that Chip Paillex and the folks at America's Grow Row are doing this, but come on, what can I do to really make a difference, particularly given the incredibly difficult challenges we're facing these days?
You know, the first thing I would say is everyone has a passion. You know, it could be anything. It could be cooking. It could be teaching people to read. It could be health. It could be anything.
It could be social justice.
It's social
fighting
justice.
Racism.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, there's more opportunities than ever to really give back and make a difference in today's society. What I would argue is that it's not the amount. It's not the, you know, don't look at Grow Row as, wow, this huge organization. I can never make such an impact. Look, at the end of the day, if every person just helps one person, isn't that enough? So I think, you know, look at what drives you, you know, what's your passion, and then figure out how to sort of serve a purpose and make change. You know, again, it doesn't have to be huge. It could be small, but at the end of the day, making any difference is a difference.
Angelica Berry talks about the ripples, you know, enough ripples, you're making a huge difference together. A final question. It is the 25th anniversary for the Berrie Foundation. What message would you have to them, their staff, the board, and frankly, all the other honorees over the years that have been recognized for the work that they've been doing?
You know, I would say, look, the ripples are huge and the ripples continue. And that's what's most important. It's not a one and done. And each year, the 10 years that I've been going to the awards every year, because quite frankly, it's the best event there is, it inspires me. It inspires people there to do something different or continue to do what they do. And so I would say that the Making a Difference Awards has clearly touched thousands and thousands of lives, so many more than they'll ever know, because they gave people a chance and they recognized them and got them into you know, the mainstream to be able to be promoted and be able to further their mission. And so the work, the Angelica and the entire board, they'll never really know how deep and how wide, but the impact is just enormous. And again, it's one of the best events. You know, we love going each year. And quite frankly, it's humbling year after year, recognizing
Sure is.
all these folks who have just done such great work.
And final point from my perspective, every year I've been there, since 2010, we've been there together. Chip, every time I think I've heard just about everything about people making a difference, we hear a new story, a different story, someone really stepping up, being an unsung hero. And it is moving, it is powerful. And in the age of COVID-19, in the age of confronting racism in all its forms, the need has never been greater. So I want to thank you, Chip, for not just joining us, but for everything you're doing and being part of the 25 for 25 in connection with the Berrie Foundation. Thank you so much, Chip.
Thank you, Steve, for all you do. And again, it's an honor to be here today and be part of the Russ Berrie family.
Well said. I'm Steve Adubato. We'll be right back.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
Welcome back, folks. We are now joined by Kirk Prichard, who is Vice President of Programs at Concern Worldwide U.S. Kirk, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
describe the organization's mission and how that mission has become even more important, has evolved since the advent of COVID-19.
Yeah, so Concern Worldwide is an international humanitarian aid organization. We've been around for about 50 years. We were founded out of Dublin, Ireland, in response to the famine in Biafra. And we really just go to some of the hardest hit countries in the world to provide humanitarian assistance and development assistance. So that's everything from responding to an earthquake or a hurricane, or some longer term agricultural work, providing safe water, shelter, etc. And COVID's really been a kind of triple whammy to us here at Concern and the humanitarian community in general. You have COVID itself, which is affecting some of the countries we're in, especially in South Asia. You'll see some huge numbers that are starting to spike out of India, Bangladesh, Pakistan. But then on top of that, you also have its effect on our ongoing programming. So if Concern, for example, is responsible for providing millions of people with their daily food rations, so their food that they rely on for a daily basis. And when you have borders being shut down, flights being rerouted, quarantines, et cetera, it just makes that programming itself so much more difficult to accomplish. And then the triple part of that is that on top of that, we're seeing a huge slowdown in the economic growth worldwide, which dramatically affects the people that we work on with, most of whom survive on less than $2 a day. So any interruption in their ability to earn a livelihood is life-threatening and devastating.
Kirk, put this in perspective for us. There are many people in our country, there are certain people in very high offices in our country who largely believe that it's not just America first, but America pretty much exclusively. We have to protect ourselves in the world. There was a lot of that talk early on in this pandemic. A significant portion of the world is now trying to protect themselves from us. Should we be protecting ourselves from each other, A, and B, how the heck do we deal with this globally when we are often so provincial in our thinking?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's really an either or. And I think we can do both. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I think, if anything, COVID and some of these other illnesses that we've seen, such as Ebola, has taught us is that in the interconnected world that we live in, it's just not possible to say this is only an American problem, or this is only an African problem, or this is only an Asian problem. These are global problems that need global solutions. And if we don't address these things globally, both in the health realm, in the economic realm, in the development realm, it will come back to the U.S. if you want to think of it in that terms. So that's why I think that we can solve the problems here in the U.S. We can work on the response here while still providing leadership and support overseas.
So let me put this out there. Global pandemic, global response. Interesting. There are some who question why we can't just have a federal response in the United States of America, as opposed to each state, each county, each municipality. Now we're talking globally. So when President Trump refers to COVID-19, you know, it has many names, not my description, but his, including the China flu, not a flu. And I'm not even going to use some of the language that he has used that is incredibly derogatory and disrespectful to people of Asian descent. Question: does that bring us closer together, or just bifurcate us even more?
Yeah, I think you're probably answering your own question there, Steve.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that wasn't even a question. You're right, that wasn't a question.
You're totally fine. But I would say that within the U.S. government, there are lots of good people that are still doing lots of good work, especially in response to COVID and the international response itself. We have excellent partners in the U.S. government in what was formerly known as the Office of Foreign Disaster Assistance, now the Bureau of Humanitarian Assistance, providing millions of dollars and helping hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people out there, and really advocating for that global response. So I think that we still do have a good government response to this that is helping us out, and hopefully will continue to provide that support.
But the World Health Organization, easy to criticize, there's legitimate criticism of them. But if in fact the United States begins to pull away more and more from the World Health Organization in the midst of this global pandemic, what are the implications, Kirk, for not just the work that you and your colleagues are doing, but more importantly, frankly, for the people around the world that you are trying to assist?
Yeah, and with the World Health Organization, it's bigger than just COVID. So for example, I don't think we would actually be pulling out of the World Health Organization for at least a year or two based on that declaration. Hopefully by that time, COVID will be more under control. What we worry about is things like vaccination campaigns, so like polio and some of these other vaccines that are going around there. the World Health Organization plays a huge role in that. And we're already seeing some of these numbers start to spike. We're starting to worry about global health trends, mortality, morbidity. There's just, put simply, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of children, young adults, et cetera, that are in much worse health shape as a result of this, because they can't have access to antibiotics, because they don't have access to anti-malarial pills, that they don't have that polio vaccine, that they don't have tuberculosis treatment. So I would argue that even more important for the World Health Organization from the coronavirus side is that they're allowed to continue their ongoing work, the good work that they do around things like polio, like tuberculosis, like malaria, et cetera.
Now, you're coming to us from Jersey City. I'm in Montclair. You're a Jersey guy, as am I.
Fourth generation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we can be awfully provincial, however. You know, because you live it every day, that it is not only impossible, but it's actually not smart to be this provincial. If someone were watching right now on public broadcasting or seeing us on other platforms and they said, you know, I appreciate what this guy Kirk is saying. I respect the work that Concern Worldwide is doing, but you know what? We just have to protect ourselves. So here's the question. What message do you have for them to help them understand that what is going on in the rest of the world and having, quote, concern for the rest of the world is in our self-interest, whether in Jersey City, Montclair, Newark, Brooklyn and New York, Bronx, wherever?
That's a good question. And I think it goes down to kind of, again, two parts. One is that I would argue we have a bigger moral imperative, to help those that are less fortunate than ourselves, both domestically and internationally. But to your point, if we just want to look at this in our own self-interest, there's been many, many quotes and studies out there about the importance foreign assistance, and especially things around pandemics, do for our own good. When you have an unstable world, when there's rife economic disparities, when there's terrorism thriving, when governments are failing, when all these things are happening, it makes the U.S. less safe. I mean, if you wanted to look at things like terrorism in the Horn of Africa, this can come back to the U.S. All these things. There was a former Joint Chief of Staff General who said, we need foreign assistance because then I can buy less bullets. It's very simple. It's a lot cheaper to provide. I mean, foreign assistance is a pittance of our total budget. It's less. It's like 1% or less. It's so small, and the return on investment on that. And that's from the security standpoint. We're not even talking about the economic standpoint. So many of the former countries that we used to provide humanitarian assistance to are some of our biggest trade partners now. So we're creating markets. We're helping these things out. And if you want to get really into kind of some of the geopolitical aspects of it, China's stepping in as well. You go to Africa, lots of these countries, you go to a lot of these countries, the number one nationality there are the Chinese, nationalists building roads, putting in these infrastructure projects, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I like to make the kind of moral argument, that we should be helping out those people that we can. We're a country like that. We've been founded on that. We've been founded on compassion and empathy, hopefully. But then it's beyond that. There is definitely a national security interest, and there's a geopolitical aspect to it as well.
Kirk Prichard is Vice President of Programs at Concern Worldwide U.S. Kirk, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Best to you, your family, and to the folks at Concern, the work you're doing every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm Steve Adubato. We'll be right back.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
Welcome back. We're now joined by Dennis Wilson, who is in fact President and CEO of Delta Dental of New Jersey. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, Steve.
Last time we were together, we were in a meeting in your conference room, brainstorming, talking about oral health. And we're taping this on the 13th of July. The world has changed dramatically. What's it like for you and your colleagues?
Changed dramatically is probably an understatement. The world is upside down, but, I'll say moving forward, thankfully we've invested significantly in technology and other resources that allows us to do most of what we do virtually. But, there's nothing to replace face-to-face, hand-to-hand human contact. But we move forward.
We have no choice, which is why we're producing like this. And hopefully we're getting better at this. And let me also disclose that Delta Dental is one of the very generous underwriters of the programming we do, particularly around public awareness regarding oral health. Put this in perspective for us. COVID and dentistry / oral health, larger issues. A, how important. B, the precautions being taken by your members.
So it remains, as it always has been, extraordinarily important, right? So in the lockdown, I'll call it, period that we've had where dentist offices were closed, individuals, patients, our members were without benefit of oral health care, of dentistry for, well, almost 3.5 months. So, I think that was appropriate, was to keep people safe. All the dentists will agree. But as we kind of roll forward, and as of the end of May, as dentist offices were allowed to open and perform most procedures, everything except cosmetic related dentistry for the most part, we have to remember that dentists are actually good at this. Dentists are very, very experienced, dating all the way back even pre the AIDS crisis, right? Dentists were very good through SARS, through H1N1, through seasonal flus at prevention and cleansing, sanitizing, all the protocols that are necessary to keep not only their patients, but themselves, their staffs safe.
Dennis, I want to follow up on something you just said. All these precautions are being taken. 3.5 months where people were without the dentistry, the oral health that they needed. Let's deal with public perception. What are the messages that need to be gotten to folks in New Jersey? You have colleagues in Connecticut as well, right?
Yes,
and in the
absolutely.
region. What's the message that needs to get to them around their oral health and what's going on to protect them when they come in, because they need to come in?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. So I think the foremost message when people ask the question, is it safe to go back to the dentist? And the direct answer is a qualified yes. And by that, I mean, as I said, dentists are good at preventing the spread of disease. They're good at sanitizing. They're good at infection control and all of those protocols. But also, the message that I would put out to anyone that's considering going back to the dentist, and they should consider that very, very carefully, is you have to be a mindful, good healthcare consumer. And by that, I mean, make sure when you call and make that appointment that you ask the dentist offices, what precautions are they taking? And it should sound something like this. It should sound something like, there is not going to be a full waiting room. As a matter of fact, we'd prefer that you not wait in a waiting room. Wait for a text from us while you're waiting in your car to come in and see the dentist. And when you're greeted by that front desk, that individual should have a mask and gloves on, and perhaps some kind of plexiglass shield in front of them. And when you go into that dentist chair, there should be no one there sitting while you're waiting on the outside. There should be at least 15 minutes between appointments so you can go in there safely, so the dentist has the opportunity to clean and sterilize the area. The other question you should ask is, does the dentist still use ultrasonics? And by that I mean, you've been to the dentist office. When you sit down, you usually have a napkin put on you, or something like that. And you inevitably get wet, misted, and all of that. So that's probably the number one thing that a dentist could do, is make sure they no longer use that ultrasonic that sprays aerosol, sprays liquid, and so forth. The CDC and the state of New Jersey has guidelines that anybody can access. You should ask those questions. Simple one. Are you adhering to the Center for Disease Control guidelines?
Got it.
It's as simple as that.
Then that's what an informed consumer, an engaged consumer has to ask those questions. Real quick, Dennis, the dentist support program, real quick, you guys are doing that with the Connecticut folks?
We are, Connecticut and New Jersey. We've developed a two-pronged program. One, prior to dentist offices being open, or open only for emergencies, we offered a program that gave them in advance of a couple of months payments that we would have paid them in a normal time. So it allowed them to bridge, if you will, an interest-free loan is what it boils down to. Very easy payback terms. That's number one. Number two, as dentist offices open at the end of May through June and through July, we provide a supplemental payment of $10 per patient visit to provide a supplement and a help and aid for the extra cost of personal protective equipment and other things that the dentist office is now required to do.
It's important stuff. That is called the Dentist Support Program. Dennis Wilson is president and CEO of Delta Dental New Jersey. Also, check out their website, which will be up throughout this segment, because we'll also talk about their relationship with the Special Olympics of New Jersey. I'm honored to be a part of the annual fundraiser that's being held, which is a golf outing. This will be seen before. I believe it's on August 21st at Essex Fells Country Club. This will be seen before and after. So, but check that out, because helping Special Olympics is something that all of us need to be engaged and involved in, as your organization is. Dennis, thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm Steve Adubato. Make sure you join us next time. Thank you.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Russell Berrie Foundation, PSE&G, Hackensack Meridian Health, the New Jersey Education Association, Gibbons PC, New Jersey Institute of Technology, NJM Insurance Group, the Fidelco Group, and by Wells Fargo. Promotional support provided by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and by ROINJ.
Day after day, we rely on electricity for all the ordinary things in our lives and for the extraordinary.
Mom! Hey, sweetie. How are you? So, tell me about the game.
I scored 2 goals.
That's my boy.
At PSEG, our commitment to you now is more powerful than ever.